Hey kids, so this week we're going to talk a little Game of Thrones. We'll be discussing a little recap of Season 5, Episode 4, Sons of the Harpy, and talking about some of the major plot points. Also, one of the biggest fan theories, if not the biggest fan theory out there, was all but confirmed, and we'll talk about that as well, so let's get started. Sons of the Harpy, but I don't think that was the major part of this episode, and I'll explain that in just a few minutes. So let's go over some of the major plot points of this episode and see where it ties in and how I think it's going to go forward from here. If this would be my top 5 takeaways from the episode, would be the Cersei versus Marjorie war, and you can see that starting to come to fruition. Cersei is, I think, a little worried about her grasp on power. Now that Tywin's dead and Jaime's gone to Dorne right now, Tyrion's out of the picture, she essentially has no family left but her son, the king, and he's shown as a very weak king. Obviously, he's a young kid. You certainly don't hate Tywin like you did Joffrey. As a matter of fact, you feel a little bad for him being thrust upon the throne, and he really has no idea what he's doing. He's the exact opposite of Joffrey. You kind of want him to succeed, but you can also see that he's being portrayed as very weak and young and that type of thing. So Cersei's trying to hang on to the little bit of power she's got left. Now that she's queen mother versus the actual queen, her power is waning as time goes by. So she's trying to maintain that by starting this beef with Marjorie, who is now the queen officially because they did consummate the marriage. Whereas with Joffrey, that never happened before he died so wonderfully. So Cersei starts this with essentially having Marjorie's father shipped off to the Iron Bank. It was under the guise of some kind of important mission to talk to the Iron Bank about the debt that the crown owes the bank as master of coin, but he was sent there with a member of the King's Guard, and that was by no accident. So essentially, he's there as a hostage, so now she has something on Marjorie where she needs to threaten Marjorie with her father's life. She now has the ability to do that. At the same time, she now has re-empowered the Faith Militant. If you hadn't read the books, you may have not been aware, but you were introduced to the High Sparrow earlier this season, as well as his followers, the Sparrows, and essentially they are a group of religious, I don't want to say fanatics, but they don't believe in people living the high life, sinning in the eyes of the Seven, which is one of the major religions in the show, obviously, in the books. They are now essentially militarized again, so now they can go around and punish people at their own will who they think are sinners or hypocrites and that type of thing. And of course, Marjorie's brother, being gay, he has now been captured and thrown in the dungeon. So now essentially Cersei is going after Marjorie's family to have some kind of power over her. I think we're going to continue to see that as a major storyline this year. But at the same time, I think that this is going to backfire on Cersei because, as we all know, Tommen and Joffrey were not the children of Robert, but her and Jaime, brotherly, sisterly type of love that they've always shared. You're seeing Cersei and Marjorie pull him in 2 different directions, so that's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season as well. The second major point I would say would be Jaime and Bronn. Now they're in Dorne to rescue Myrcella. Again, that kind of goes back to Cersei. That is really her weakness right now, is Myrcella down in Dorne, where they want revenge for Prince Oberyn's death. Ellaria is determined to start a war to avenge his death because she calls it murder. Technically, it wasn't murder. He was in a trial by combat representing Tyrion as Tyrion's champion. He essentially beat the Mountain's ass, which nobody thought could be done. He had to walk around and talk shit. I mean, you knew that was going to happen, and then he gets his damn skull crushed in. So that was one of the most glorious death scenes, obviously, in Game of Thrones thus far. With that, with Jaime and Bronn being in Dorne, you get to meet Oberyn's daughters, or at least some of them, the Sand Snakes. In the books, I believe there are 7 daughters. I think that's all we're really going to see. They're probably not going to show any of the younger ones. There's really no need for it and really no time for it. We got to meet Obara, Tyene, and Nymeria. They're going to be pretty badass. I think you'll see each of those carrying a different weapon, and I'm sure they're a master of all, but they specialize in one, so that'd be pretty cool to see how that develops as well. The third major takeaway I would say would be the Sansa Littlefinger plotline. That continues as she is now in Winterfell, and Littlefinger's been summoned back to King's Landing by Cersei. So you're going to see Sansa, I think, take the part of Lady Stoneheart from the books. That's Catelyn Stark reborn into Lady Stoneheart to avenge her family, the Stark, since they were all essentially murdered in cold blood. I don't believe that's going to be a character in the show. I think you're going to see Sansa, what people are referring to as Dark Sansa now. I even think at some point she may realize that what Littlefinger's up to, which nobody really knows his grand scheme. But she may end up actually turning on him as well. But I think at some point you're going to see Theon kind of redeem himself a little bit by either saving Sansa or rescuing her. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet. The fourth takeaway from this episode, I would say, would be it's getting a little more in depth of showing Dany's character progression and how it truly is to be a queen, with the Sons of the Harpy coming in, causing her all kinds of problems. Essentially in this episode, you saw some of the Unsullied get attacked and killed by an ambush from the Sons of the Harpy, and kind of led another group into a trap that included Grey Worm. And yes, Grey Worm is at least injured, if not dead. I believe he's just injured, but I'm not sure. Unfortunately, also Ser Barristan died, and I believe he is dead. He got it pretty good. Grey Worm, I'm not so sure. He fell beside him as if he could have died, but he may just be injured. And I know there is a scene we all saw in the preview where Missandei kisses him at some point, but you can only see him laying there, so you don't know if he's dead, if he's just injured. But I hate to see Grey Worm go, and Ser Barristan for that matter. You know, Ser Barristan's been, talked up throughout the series as one of the baddest fighters in all of Westeros, and yes, he's old, and he took out quite a few harpies in his death scene, so it did show that he was a badass with a sword, but unfortunately he bit the dust, I think, so I don't think we'll be seeing him again. But I think it's also necessary because you have Tyrion on his way now with Ser Jorah. Ser Jorah obviously kidnapped Tyrion last episode and taking him to Daenerys, and essentially I think Daenerys is going to have a new quote-unquote small council, and I think that will be Ser Jorah once he's back in her good graces. Tyrion, once he kind of explains himself, and I think Varys will find his way as well. And of course, the major plot point from this is probably the most important, if not the most important, plot point going into not only this season, but probably the rest of seasons, even playing into the end game of Game of Thrones, and that is the famous R+L equals J theory. So real quickly for you guys who may not know this theory, this has to do with Jon Snow's true parentage. To quickly summarize this theory is that Jon Snow is not actually the child of Ned Stark and some tavern woman somewhere when he was all fighting in Robert's rebellion, but rather that Jon Snow is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, Ned's sister. There have been tons and tons of hints dropped throughout the books especially, but now it's essentially in this episode it's really been all but confirmed. The basic story goes that Rhaegar Targaryen, the son of the Mad King, and Daenerys and Viserys' brother, who Robert killed at the Battle of the Trident and Robert's rebellion to take the throne, that he loved Lyanna Stark and he had won a jousting match. So after winning this jousting match, Rhaegar had taken blue roses and went right past his wife to Lyanna, which was betrothed to Robert, and then laid them in her lap, and apparently then kidnapped her and raped her. That's what people believe happened, and that's what started Robert's rebellion to lead him, along with Ned Stark and his bannermen and that type of thing, to take the Iron Throne from the Mad King, which was the last Targaryen to rule. So the R+L equals J theory is that Lyanna was actually in love with Rhaegar Targaryen, and that she actually left with him willingly, and there was no kidnapping and rape, and that Jon Snow was a result of that love affair. When Ned went to her on her deathbed, which was described as a bed of blood, that indicated a child being born, and that she died during childbirth, hence the promise that she made Ned keep, where in the books it just says Ned promised me, that nobody really knows what that meant. But now we do. In this episode, for me at least, with the scenes again from Daenerys talking to Ser Barristan about how great Rhaegar was and how he was a good singer versus, and he didn't really like fighting, but he was a badass warrior, to the scene with Stannis and his wife and him not really believing that was Ned Stark, that he would actually cheat on Catelyn, and the scene with Littlefinger and Sansa at Lyanna's crypt, as well as some other hints, Ned's unwillingness to go after Daenerys and kill a Targaryen child, which ties into him wanting to protect Jon Snow, promising his sister, since he's actually a Targaryen. So for me, this just cemented for me that the fan theory is in fact correct, and I'm very, very interested to see where this goes, not only into this season and the following season, but really all the way up to the end game of Game of Thrones. or A Song of Ice and Fire for you book readers. I'm Chris with Smokescreen, and let me know what you guys think about Season 5, Episode 4, Sons of the Harpy. Feel free to mention in the comments below anything I missed or anything you'd like to add. I'm always interested in discussion, and definitely like to hear from you what you think on the R+L=J theory, which I think, again, is confirmed. I want to add one thing real quick. This is a new channel, and I've just barely got over 50 subscribers, but I want to thank each and every one of you guys for subscribing. And thanks for all your likes and shares. Follow me on Facebook as well. I'll obviously link my videos from there, but I'll probably post some blurbs and stuff as well pertaining to some of these shows and or politics. And follow me right here on Twitter at SmokescreenVids and give me a shout out and let me know what you guys think, and feel free to ask questions. I'll be glad to do some question and answer type videos as well for some of these shows and or politics. And click right here for my last video. I did Superman versus Batman, a trailer review. Click here to subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.